Thanks to our Patreon members for helping to make this episode possible, and we're now available on all the major podcasting platforms. You can find more information at the links below. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Late Capitalism, a Survival Guide. Addendum on Elon Musk. A bit painful to say that, but nonetheless, the recent news is so rich in its exemplary power for what we've been discussing, I think is worth a pause. And so Musk just announced that he's going to take his XAI company and roll it into his SpaceX company. Those are both private. In preparation for theoretically later this year, although many things he predicts do not come true, but, theoretically later this year, they're going to do an IPO. Why is this of any interest to our story at all? Well, Elon Musk in some way is both an outlier, but functionally the perfect model for everything we've been talking about in the Late Capitalist series. Why is he an outlier? Because functionally, he's a 19th century industrialist. He is not a modern industrial. He's not a late capitalist guy in some ways, because he's actually built things in the real world that real people use in existing markets. So we have Tesla, the car company that actually builds cars. So he took a niche, small electric car maker and turned it into a global electric car producer. So that is sort of an impressive, amazing feat. They sell lots of cars. It generates lots of money. Sometimes it's profitable. Sometimes it's not. Of course, they're having a little trouble these days, but there you go. He's also built the SpaceX company, which launches satellites. Now, he went into, this is a well-developed market, but he kind of transformed the market, doing it more quickly at a much lower cost. And so now he does satellite deliveries, so that's kind of impressive. And he developed the Starlink system. And Starlink is a satellite communication system. By the way, satellite communications has been around since, the 50s and the 60s. So this is a 60, 70-year-old industry. It's not a new industry. Telecommunications goes back before that. Hello, Alexander Graham Bell. Hello, this telegraph, right? So that sort of communication at distance information processing systems, this is a well-developed, well-established industry. But he enters this industry with the SpaceX, launched the Starlink satellites, satellite communication company. So he's been building real physical things in the world that provide cars for people and electric cars. He sort of cracked open that industry to a certain degree. He's built satellites, space ships to launch satellites. He sort of expanded that industry. So, here the real rockets launching real satellites into space. And he's created this new network for telecommunications. Has a couple of million users, which is great. All real things built in real world, providing new value for the clients, which again runs counter to what I've been arguing, using as examples of the late capitalist model. And to note, by the way, also, how has he done this? Well, he's done this with the old playbook, which is to say government subsidies, tax evasion and tax avoidance strategies, bribing of government officials, of, environmental damage, again, so, the old playbook, that's the old playbook. But what's fascinating to me, at least, and I think hopefully to you, if you've been listening to this series, is that he denies that he does any of this. He keeps saying that Tesla is not a car company. SpaceX is a going to Mars company. Starlink is a data centers in space company. These are all artificial intelligence companies, or they're something else. But what he keeps saying, that whatever it is his companies are actually palpably, clearly doing, is not what they're doing. Like, we don't make cars. And I'm like, I feel like you do make cars, right? Maybe I'm confused here, but I see them and they must come from someplace. And I don't think it's trees. I think you actually are making them. This is my suspicion. I could be wrong, but I think they do actually make them. And it's like, oh, what a weird seeming friction between what you're actually doing and what you claim to be doing. And this is where the late capitalism comes absolutely to the fore, and all the problems we've been talking about come to the fore. The reason he doesn't want to be a car company, Tesla is not a car company, he's doing something else, by the way. What changes day by day what he's doing. Was going to be a Cybertruck company that fell apart. Still don't have those things years later. Fully autonomous driving for robo-taxis, well, that's been pushed back. I think we're on like year 8, 9, 7, a long time. That's not coming anytime soon because now they're not even a car company. Robots, apparently, theoretically, who knows what's going on there. Right, so all of these promises, anything but being a car company. And the reason he needs to do this, it's necessary, this isn't incidental, is if it were priced like a regular car company, i.e. where you look at how many cars they make, how much it costs them, how much they sell them for, how much revenue they generate, how much profit, look at the market, do some calculations and go, hey, how much are they worth? Well, if you price them the way a Volkswagen or a Toyota is priced, they would be worth about, Tesla being they, would be worth about $75 billion. That would be at about 10x price per earnings and about $25 a share. But Tesla is worth $1.4 trillion. That's a price to earning ratio of a truly insane $370 times at $440 a share. So there's no relationship functionally between the money that Tesla generates, certainly not the profit they make, it is occasionally profitable. So it's not that there's no profit there, but and a $1.4 trillion valuation. And you see this again with, so they bought Twitter for some crazy billions of dollars, lost a bunch of money doing that, took it private. And then, okay, that's failing, that's losing money. Well, let's roll it into another private company, exactly what we talked about with the private equity industry. We've talked about this model, which is our Grok AI, our XAI program. Well, that's just burning cash, and they're running out of cash, so they need a new cash infusion. So they decide, hey, don't admit that you have no idea what you're doing, and this is losing huge piles of cash. And that you've combined it with another money-losing business, which is Twitter. And so now you have two money-losing businesses. So what you do is you roll it into your one business that is making money, which is SpaceX, and which is very profitable, or was very profitable. And now you have a business that is, in fact, was cash positive and debt low. And now you have a business that is debt high and running a significant deficit and burning cash again. All in the name of what? An IPO. So again, if you look at the earnings to debt and all of that kind of stuff, then you go, oh, the IPO would be worth one kind of thing. But if you say, oh no, this is a space data center, future Mars colony, potential, then all of a sudden in the valuation, that might be perfectly fine, a couple of $100 billion or $1 billion, whatever, some billions. No, all of a sudden it's going to be the largest, they're saying largest IPO potential in history. And it's all built on that magic asset valuation multiplier that we keep talking about. This is not mark to market. This is not a reasonable in any financial traditional calculation. But it's like, oh, maybe. And this is where that massive asset inflation, which leads to all kinds of inflation, real estate inflation, just all the inflations that we've been talking about, this is part of where it comes from. Where does that extra $1.4 trillion, right, that Tesla is worth, that valuation has all kinds of bizarre impacts. It's real impacts on the financialized world. So people use that stock as an asset to borrow against, to make other investments, which then run up the asset value of those other investments. And so this has an incredible distorting impact and makes the markets, one, very much more volatile, much more hard to figure out, and just creates this bizarre never land where when people talk about, where do we get these people that have so much money, hundreds of billions of dollars, where they didn't exist before. And people go, so our knee-jerk reaction is to say, they're stealing it from the workers. And as I mentioned, they're perfectly happy to steal it from the workers, and they're certainly stealing some of it from the workers, but most of it comes from this sort of financialized leverage insanity where you have a company with 370 times price per earning ratio. Just for the record, they used to say, back in the day when I was younger, that anything over 20 was considered a danger sign, right? If you have a company that was over 20 times price to earning ratio, that was probably getting into the don't invest in that. This is not going to work out well. Well, so then you had companies that like 25 and 30, and people are like, 30, that's 370, right? It's just functionally no world where that makes sense, right? You can't come up, and I've actually tried to do the research on this, as you can imagine, and you can't find a model where that actually like pans out, but it doesn't seem to matter. So that's fine until it does. And then, up leverage is down leverage. It's always the magic story. But so what we're seeing here is that everything that we've talked about rolled into one juicy package with the extra bonus of how bizarre it is for someone who is actually doing traditional capitalism for good and ill, producing things in the real world that have real customers who pay real money to do real services in delivering, right, actual needs for people. Denying it. Like Musk keeps saying this is 100% not what we're doing. And it's like, wow, that's how bad it is. It's a trap. If you get caught actually producing things that people use that you can price, then you're over. It's done. Like then Tesla's stock value would fall by literally by $1.3 trillion. That's how much it would cost them if they ever became an actual car company. So they cannot let that happen. So they have to deny that they actually produce things in the world. You see how mad that is? So when I say this whole system is wildly counterintuitive and unnatural, this is what I'm talking about, right? This is precisely the example of why I like this. And also, again, the notion of stealing from the worker. I mean, yes, there are many ways in which they are exploiting and taking profits and everything else from workers. So I do not want to mitigate that, again, but that's old-fashioned capitalism. But the real, the massive disparities in wealth we're seeing don't come from people actually producing things and then stealing from the workers that produce them. That's the old system. This is from a system where people don't produce things except for these huge 370 times price to earning asset explosions. Those assets are owned by relatively few people. And so those people become worth titanic amounts of money on paper. And that paper money distorts all the markets and all the political systems and all the everything. But it's not necessarily built on robbing the workers in the way it was 50, 75, 100, 200 years ago. It's this new model. In fact, so much of a new model, as I keep saying, that Musk denies that they actually make things. We're not making cars. We're not launching rockets. Instead, we're going to Mars. We're not doing satellite communications. No, we're building data centers in space. It's this madness because, again, if you get caught out actually doing something real in the real world, you'll lose all your value. So just a moment of reflection there on how truly strange, how bizarre and never land we've become. And again, if you struggle with understanding this and it feels counterintuitive and it feels wrong, that is because you're right. It is all of those things. Thank you very much.